My goal for myself is just one day to be able to just eat without feeling guilt ever. Like, that would be really nice.
I guess like when I started having body image issues, I was around 8 or 9.
I want to go a day without thinking about how I look, or I want to go a day without thinking about how much food I did or didn't eat. And I will honestly admit that I don't think I've gone a day in my life where I haven't thought about my body and I haven't thought about what I'm eating.
This is me when I was really young. I don't really remember much about my childhood, and I barely remember what was even going on in most of these photos. But the one constant memory I have throughout each of these years is a deep and strong disdain for my body. See, I somehow convinced myself as young as the age of 7 that I desperately needed to lose weight, and I've sort of been stuck in that lie ever since. Apparently, I wasn't the only one. 82% of 10-year-olds indicate that they are afraid of being fat. And overall, approximately 91% of women are unhappy with their bodies, according to an article titled 11 Facts About Body Image on DoSomething.org. But unfortunately, only 5% of women naturally possess the body type so often portrayed by Americans in the media. And this constant portrayal of this ideal body type leaves a devastating lie in the minds of so many vulnerable people, a lie saying that something is wrong with them. See, I wanted to find out how this lie had manifested itself in my peers, so I put out a little question on Twitter and in group chats asking people to share their experiences with their own body image to maybe help myself and hopefully other girls finally recognize this big lie we've all bought into, this lie that there's something wrong with us.
My name is Olivia. I'm 19 and I'm from a little town outside of Providence, Rhode Island.
Hi, my name is Grace Almeida and I'm 19 years old and I'm from Rockville, Maryland.
My name is Carol. I just turned 19 years old, and I live in Clarksville, Maryland, in Howard County.
I'm Brenna Vieira. I'm 18 and I'm from Tiverton, Rhode Island.
Hi everyone, my name is Katia Beltran. I'm 19 years old and I am currently in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Hey there, my name's Vivian Flanagan. I'm 19. I'm in college at the University of Maryland.
I would describe my relationship with food and my body image as a work in progress. In the past, I definitely had a very negative relationship with food and my body image especially. I did acrobatic gymnastics when I was young, starting at the age of like 10, I think. So at an early age, my body was the focus of my life for a long time. A lot of the girls around me, were very skinny, and not to say I wasn't skinny as well, but that was kind of the look that everyone wanted. You needed to be thin and a very athletic build, and if you couldn't achieve that, it definitely could be a problem. So I had always wanted to find ways to fit into the smallest size clothing, and if I didn't, I would get really upset. And I didn't always want to eat all my food because I didn't want to gain too much weight. This in turn definitely really ruined my relationship with my body and food. I would lash out at my mom if she suggested that I eat more. I would get especially angry if I received clothes for holiday gifts or anything and they would be sizes too big, because I would just assume that people thought I was that size and it would make me really upset. So any little thing about my body or about eating would really trigger me and frustrate me, which was really difficult to deal with at such a young age. And I, back then it was very hard to come to terms with. After I quit that sport, things actually, I thought they would get better, or most people would think that it would get better. It actually got worse. When I quit, I wasn't exercising as much, and so I definitely gained some weight, and it kind of pushed me into a depressed state almost, because I hated the way I looked. I would look in the mirror and I would hate everything about my body. I would pinch everywhere and just say that I hate this part, I hate that part, and I couldn't even like walk behind my friends in the hallway because I would just stare at their bodies and be like, dang, I wish I could look like that. I wish I was that skinny or that thin. And I wish I didn't look the way I did. And, you know, some people would call this body dysmorphia. I've never been like diagnosed by a doctor, but I definitely have looked in the mirror and have described myself a lot differently than what people see. So I had a really negative way that I looked at my body. I never was appreciative of it, and I just never wanted to ever like show it off. So I would wear, you know, sweatshirts and whatever I could wear to just like not really show off my body. And then my relationship with food also was really bad because I became obsessive with counting calories. I wanted to know everything that I was eating so that I could lose weight. And then when I wouldn't lose weight, I would get mad at myself and think that I was doing something wrong, which just was a huge turmoil for me as a teenager growing up. So that was definitely something that I struggled with.
I've always had body image issues, you know, from I think the beginning of puberty. I always like was really hypercritical of my appearance. And as I got older, that progressed into, I guess, hypervigilance to the point of being like disordered with my eating habits, as well as like just developing like body dysmorphic disorder. You know, who's to say that I didn't always have it, but I think over the years it's become more and more serious, and you know, my symptoms and my coping strategies have become integrated with my everyday life. So it's become more and more prevalent in the day-to-day for me.
I guess like when I started having body image issues, I was around 8 or 9. 8 or 9, like elementary school age. And I don't attribute that to my upbringing. I attribute it more to what I saw in media. I remember being 8, looking in the mirror and being and crying because I thought I looked pregnant, which is so stupid because as an elementary schooler, you are not supposed to have boobs, and your stomach probably isn't going to be totally flat unless you're like some kind of crazy child athlete with abs, which I was not. And that was kind of what started, that was kind of how it started, was just me wanting to look like, I guess, what I'd seen, how I'd seen women portrayed, even though I was not yet a woman. I was 8 years old. I would say that back then, my self-esteem was pretty bad, and that all stemmed from me wanting to be pretty and me wanting to like have a desirable body, I guess. And I would say that I still struggle with body image today, even though I'm a lot better than I was when I was a kid. But how you feel about yourself growing up, like through puberty, I think that kind of has an effect on you for the rest of your life.
So my relationship with my body image and food is definitely the best it's been right now than it's been probably since I went through puberty. Now I'm in a better place where I feel confident with myself most of the time, and I can eat and not feel super guilty about it. But towards like the beginning of high school, I wasn't in a great place, and I just, anytime I ate, I felt so out of control, and I got to a point where I was making myself throw up, and that went on for a while until I got caught by my parents and I had to go to therapy. And so I haven't been like bulimic in years, but I still definitely do struggle with like issues like with food and with my body image.
I have a pretty good relationship with my body. It's definitely grown and developed throughout high school. But in middle school, I was a pretty scrawny girl, and I actually used to get like playfully bullied by my friends in 8th grade about having, a big butt or something. It was like kind of a joke. But I'm also Latina, so there's a certain body type that accompanies that. And so I kind of have like a smaller waist, thicker thighs. And that definitely grew and developed throughout high school once I joined a sport and started working out a lot more regularly. It was 2 hours a day, every day after school, Monday through Friday. So that was a lot of working out, and I still have stretch marks on my thighs from how fast my thighs grew. But yeah, so I would say that I did feel very insecure, especially about my thighs. I thought they were so big, and I had seen all these people on social media and stuff post with their like sexy legs, like thin and long and like looking all pretty. And when I would do those same poses, my thighs would be so big and stick out. And I thought that guys like that. They like that. They like those legs and all that stuff. And as I, grew and matured and experienced things in high school, I realized that I loved my body because I didn't need to think about what guys want a girl to look like. I need to think about how I value myself and what I look like.
I think my first body image awakening sort of moment, episode maybe, was because of ballet. I danced ballet from the ages of 4 to 16, and I just did it because I loved it. I was never super good, and one of the main reasons I wasn't super good was because I was short, I had short legs, I had knobby knees, I wasn't super flexible, so a lot of what I did just didn't turn out looking so well. I don't know, you can cut that out. But yeah, I just did it because I loved it. But over the years, the more my friends progressed and the more I kind of lagged behind, the more insecure I got about just like the shape of my body and how my legs looked and, how high I could jump or things like that. And it kind of got to the point where my studio would move around a lot, location-wise. And at one point they had moved to a location an hour away from my house. I think they're still there. But I was just so insecure about potentially changing studios that I just begged my parents to take me there 3 to 4 times a week, an hour away from my house, just so that I didn't have to join another studio and have them judge me all over again. But in the end, it kind of became too much, and I just had to quit. And when I stopped dancing, I kind of gained a significant amount of weight. So I went from dancing to 15 to maybe even 20 hours a week to 0. And I didn't really know how to exercise on my own because for the first, 12 years of, well, not first 12 years, but for 12 years of my life, all of my exercise was just focused on dance, and it was, other people telling me what to do, and I never really figured out how to exercise independently. And even when I quit, I was just eating the same amount. So that, those things coupled together, I just kind of started, spiking in weight gain a bit. So this bit of weight, along with just the fact that I'm just a short East Asian girl, I've always kind of had this, not fear exactly, but some apprehension maybe about becoming this Asian auntie, but I don't know.
I think one of my biggest fears back then when it came to my body was, getting bigger. Just gaining weight, any weight, if it was water weight or just bloating or because I'm a female and I go through periods once a month, you blow and you gain some weight just from that, and it would freak me out. And that was actually one of the biggest things that kind of pushed me to hate my body. When I turned 13, I got my first period, and I was told that you get your period when you reach 100 pounds or when you reach a certain weight that your body can now like menstruate or whatever. And that definitely for me, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I reached this weight. I'm like way too big. And it was like really difficult for me. And I kept trying to lose weight so that I would lose my period, because I thought if I didn't get my period, then I was skinny enough, which is really bad and really unhealthy. Now I realize that.
I think my greatest fear would be imparting my unhealthy habits on someone else. Like, I think, if I were to have children and they, sort of adopted the same self-criticism that I have about myself, that would really break my heart. Because it's so funny, like, we justify hating ourselves because we would never do it to someone else, right? So once you see sort of your lack of respect for yourself translated to another person, or you see someone talking, hatefully or negatively about themselves, then you realize like how serious, how conspicuous your self-image issues are.
I guess my biggest struggle now is a bit different than before, but now it's just that like guilt that I talked about. I'm always worried about like finding the right balance and like achieving that certain like level of health for each of my meals. I've always just kind of watched a lot of like food videos and cooking videos, but also like nutrition videos. And they always put a lot of pressure on you to like make sure everything you're eating is like healthy. Some people had different messages, obviously, but I just kind of, my goal for myself is just one day to be able to just eat without feeling guilt ever. Like, that would be really nice. I don't know, some of my friends eat like that, and I'm just like, what? How can you?
My biggest struggle with my body image and eating is definitely when other people will say something. Like, if I don't eat much of like a meal one day because I'm not like feeling that great, and I know that I can't feel comfortable if I'm completely full, and somebody points out how little I ate, that will just make me so uncomfortable. I will feel sick to my stomach all day. I like won't feel good about myself. Or if somebody my senior year, I lost 25 pounds, and most people didn't comment on it, but I noticed especially adults that I knew would comment on it, and they would tell me how skinny I looked and how like much better I looked now, and that was always really hard to hear. It like would confirm that I was skinnier, so I was more attractive now. But I try not to let that get to my head, even though it does sometimes. But I do have a good support system with my friends and family. My mom will call out adults if they say anything like that and tell them to keep their mouths shut.
Again, it's hard for me to pinpoint, but I think, this is to no fault of my family, but growing up in a healthy household, oddly enough, I think it's endowed me with a lot of positive traits, like, vigilance when it comes to exercise, like conscientiousness when it comes to what I eat. But I think it's also led me to almost engage in like a self-surveillance type relationship where I'm really critical of myself when I eat poorly, because I think that we forget when we use the words bad and good when it comes to food, that all food, is supposed to power our bodies. While some may be, you know, not as nutritionally beneficial as others, you know, all food is there to help you walk, breathe, keep your heart beating, stuff like that. So I think that having a relationship with food that has been punitive, developing a relationship with food that is characterized by how punitive it is, has led me to the beliefs that I have now.
When I was at a family party in 4th grade, and I was standing with my mom and a few other women, and one of them pointed out this other woman, and they said something about her thigh gap and how jealous they were and how she would, like, they wished they had one and that she was so attractive. And I remember, like, looking down at my legs and seeing that I didn't have one, and realizing for the first time that that was a bad thing, and that was not something that I had ever considered before. And then after that first instance, I kind of started noticing more when people, like, would point out, like, how like super skinny women were more attractive, and then other girls my age also started feeling the same way. And there was one girl in my 4th grade class that was like a twig, and she ate a lot. I remember she had a massive cinnamon roll for breakfast every day, and they would talk about how jealous they were that she could eat that and she was still a twig. And yes, and just like things like that started happening more, and I started noticing it more and internalizing all of it.
Times where my traditional grandma would say something in Spanish about me seemingly having gained weight and eating a lot, or like, is that like, how many snacks do you eat, right? So like making little comments, and it used to get to me. I actually cried about it, but in the end I realized, like, who are you to say, right? Here you are, you know, and here I am, and I like who I am and how I look.
I think that I always say I'm in recovery, but, you know, it's interesting because I don't really have a point in my time, or I mean a point in my life where I was at my lowest. I think that I've kind of kept my disordered eating habits and my body dysmorphia at a constant rate. You know, they just sort of change in the way that I criticize myself, or change in the way that I, you know, monitor my eating. So I think that, no, I don't think I am better now. I think that in any way, my body image issues have just evolved.
I'm a lot better now. I look at my body and I love my body, and you know, I still have to work on really, really fully loving myself 100%. There are some bad days, but I don't get as upset when I look in the mirror anymore. I see an image that I really appreciate. Food, I'll eat more sweets, which I used to deprive myself of dessert all the time. I just would never eat anything sweet or dessert-like. I eat a lot more of that, which makes me happy. I eat just kind of whatever I want, whatever I'm in the mood for, I'll let myself eat, rather than suppressing all those, my appetite and suppressing my hunger, which is something that I constantly did when I was younger.
I am definitely better now with my beliefs than I was even a year ago. I try to work every day towards being happier with myself and feeling like self-confidence, and even the days that I'm not feeling so great about myself, I tell myself that that's okay, and that happens to everybody.